Welcome to my channel. It's Stephanie Grams, Sewpreneur, the Memory Bear Business Coach. You can find me at stephaniegrams.com or sewpreneur.com. Let's jump right in here, and I'm going to do a voiceover because my machine is a little bit loud and distracting. Sewing patterns can be expensive, and depending on how often you use that pattern, they can be wore out quickly. I don't know what happened over the last 30 years with sewing patterns, but the paper is so thin, super thin, and in my personal opinion, it's too thin. So several years ago, I'm talking 20 something years ago, this led me to create a way to preserve my patterns. And with the wonderful invention of a scanner printer, now we can do that. I want you to make sure that you know the legal implications, so please read the fine print. This is for my personal use. It's not manufactured, and I do this strictly for me, for myself. So I cut out my pattern pieces, the ones that I need, and this is mainly for all of you Memory Bear keepsake owners. You do a lot of sewing, repetitive sewing, using same pattern pieces over and over. You might use a pattern piece from one pattern and compare and add it to a different pattern, and you come up with your own creations. And regardless of what pattern pieces you're using, it's the same thing. If you're going to use the same pattern over and over and over again, they get wore out, correct? So what I do is I open up my patterns, I cut out the pieces that I need, and then I lay them on my scanner right there. You can see that. And I make a photocopy. Again, I don't sell these. I don't share these. I don't save them in a hard drive. I strictly make a copy for my own personal pattern file, which is a clear plastic shoebox in my sewing area. Reason I do this is, well, one, the pattern pieces these days, the paper is so thin, and it only takes one little goof up and you've ruined the whole thing. And I don't know about you, but I can't afford to continuously buy the same pattern pieces over and over and over again. So what I do is I use a thicker printer paper. It's not quite cardstock, but it's more like resume paper. It's a heavier weight than printer paper. I make a couple copies for myself. That way I know if I mess up on one, or I cut over the line too much, or if I accidentally use too many straight pins, sewing pins, and it wears it down, then I have a backup copy. As always, I keep my original pattern pieces. The original ones that I purchased, I keep those in the envelope. And if you watch until the very end of this video, I show you how I preserve those. But every single pattern piece that I need, that I know I'm going to use, I make a duplicate and I keep those together. Now, in this screenshot, what you're watching right now is this particular pattern piece is just too long for the flatbed to scan it. So I have to scan it in two separate pieces. And some of the patterns that I saved for like clothing, I've had to scan in 5 or 6 different increments and then tape them together. You cut them out like a puzzle piece and then you tape them together. And that's what I'm showing you here. You just line up the dots, and then once you tape it, you can even lay it on top of the original piece, the original pattern piece, and make sure that everything was copied correctly and you cut it out correctly. I just used basic clear sticky tape and I put it all together. This is the particular pattern I was working on because I will be making some of these as gifts this coming year. And right there, that's how I store the originals. I put it in a piece of paper, I fold it, and I stick it back in the envelope. That way when I reach for this envelope, I know all of the pieces are still there. And that's my new book. Check it out at stephaniegrams.com. Oh, and by the way, this pattern also goes by a different number if you're trying to find it. Okay, guys, sewing mints the soul right there, stephaniegrams.com. Come on by, give me a like, subscribe to my channel, share it with your sewing entrepreneur friends. Thank you so much for stopping by.